Each dawn, whisper to your spirit, I am enough, I am becoming, I hold peace, I forgive, I learn, I rise, I choose joy, I breathe purpose, I own my voice, I trust the path, I welcome growth, I walk in light, let your words lead you into glory. Affirmation fuels purpose. What you say to yourself becomes what you build. This truth isn't a poetic exaggeration. It is the foundation of how lives are shaped, how identities are carved, and how dreams become touchable realities. Words are not mere sounds, they are seeds. When you speak with intention, when you speak with belief, you plant those seeds into the soil of your consciousness, and what grows from that soil is what you will live. The most powerful architect of your day is the voice that speaks before your feet hit the floor. That voice, whether gentle or fierce, loving or bitter, becomes your compass. If you tell yourself, I can't, I'm not enough, it's not worth it, those words don't evaporate, they take root. And from those roots come patterns of hesitation, cycles of fear, and decisions made small by disbelief. You shrink, not because the world demands it, but because your own words whispered that you should. But when you shift the language, when you begin to declare, even quietly, I am capable, I am worthy, I have a place in this world, you begin to stand with a straighter back and a stronger heart. You don't wait for permission, you give it to yourself. Affirmation becomes an act of liberation. You free yourself from the cages built by old doubts and voices that were never yours to carry in the first place. There is power in naming yourself. The world will call you many things, some out of ignorance, some out of fear, and some with love. But it is what you call yourself that creates the blueprint for your becoming. If you name yourself broken, then you walk like you're in pieces. If you name yourself a storm, then you arrive with wind and purpose. If you name yourself worthy, then you do not settle for crumbs when you were made for feast. It is not vanity to speak well of yourself. It is necessity. It is not arrogance to affirm your value. It is survival, especially in a world that is so often eager to tell you that you are too much or not enough, too dark, too soft, too loud, too silent. The act of speaking to yourself with clarity, kindness, and courage is radical. It is a declaration that you will not be ruled by other people's fear. And you don't have to scream it. A whisper is enough, a quiet promise in the mirror, a soft reminder written on a sticky note, a pause in the chaos of the morning to breathe in your worth. These small rituals build the bones of your confidence. They are not decoration, they are foundation. When you affirm your purpose, your path becomes clearer, even if it is not yet easy. This is not magic, though it feels sacred. It is discipline. It is choice. Some mornings you will not feel strong, but still, you speak strength. Some mornings, joy may feel far, but still, you speak of joy. That is the discipline. Saying what is true, even when the feeling hasn't arrived yet. Not to pretend, but to prepare your spirit to receive it. What you tell yourself again and again becomes your inner music, and the rhythm of that music influences how you move in the world. Do you walk with shame or with grace? Do you show up in your relationships with fear or with love? Do you reach for your dreams with hesitance or with hunger? The answers depend on your inner dialogue. That inner dialogue begins with the words you choose when you wake. If you say, I am not defined by my past, you start to look ahead instead of behind. If you say, I have everything I need inside me, you stop grasping for validation that dilutes your power. If you say, I matter, then your actions align with that belief. You begin to build not just for survival, but for meaning. And it's not about perfection. No one speaks life into themselves flawlessly every day. You will have mornings when the doubt sits heavy, but even then, speak. Even through trembling lips, say what must be said. Even if your voice cracks, let it rise. That small act, the choice to affirm your truth, sends ripples into the rest of your day, and those ripples gather. They build into waves, and eventually you look around and realize that you are standing in a life you built, word by word, breath by breath, all because you believed that what you said to yourself mattered. Morning thoughts set the emotional compass of your day. Long before the world makes a demand on your energy, your emotions are already being shaped. The first thoughts you think when your eyes open are not just idle flickers of the mind. They are signals. They signal how your body feels, how your heart prepares, and how your spirit stands. These early moments carry weight, and though they may pass quickly, they leave a mark that lingers from sunrise to sunset. When you wake with gratitude, you begin from a place of abundance. Even if nothing new has arrived, even if the problems of yesterday are still present, the simple act of choosing gratitude rewires your emotional field. It whispers to your nervous system that you are safe, that life is still offering beauty, that hope hasn't gone missing. Gratitude isn't naive. It's strategic. It tells your heart where to look before your fear gets a chance to speak. Likewise, if your first thoughts are heavy with worry or frustration, they set a different tone. You may feel hurried before your feet even hit the ground. You may carry tension into your shoulders or carry dread in your chest. It happens quietly but quickly. The mind starts building stories. Today is going to be too hard. I'm already behind. Nothing ever changes. These stories may not be true, but they gain power because they are the first to speak. And first words, like first impressions, have staying power. That is why morning is sacred. It is a space where you are most vulnerable to suggestion, even from yourself. Your brain, still soft from sleep, hasn't yet built its defenses. Your thoughts are malleable. Your mood hasn't fully taken shape. In that space, you have the opportunity to be intentional, to guide your day before your day guides you. This doesn't require dramatic rituals. It can be as simple as breathing deeply and asking, what kind of day do I want to create? Not what will happen to me today, but how do I choose to meet what happens? That shift puts power back in your hands. You are no longer a passive participant reacting to whatever mood shows up. You are choosing the tone, choosing the direction, choosing the emotional compass that will steer you. Even one thought, just one, can change the trajectory. If you tell yourself, I am calm and I can handle what comes, you're not making a false promise. You're laying a foundation. You're telling your nervous system you're not under attack. You're not drowning. You're here, you're breathing, and you are more than your overwhelm. That message matters. It determines whether you meet people with openness or resistance. It influences whether you face challenges with clarity or chaos. Sometimes the thoughts you wake with aren't kind. They come from wounds, from stress, from subconscious fears, but they don't have to be final. You can pause, examine them, and decide which ones to keep. You are not required to carry every emotion that rises with the dawn. You can choose to say, I see this thought, but I'm choosing another. I feel this weight, but I am not defined by it. This is emotional leadership. And the first step in leading your emotions is greeting them at the door rather than letting them take over the house. The emotional compass of your day is not a rigid direction, it's a guide. It doesn't guarantee that things won't go wrong, but it shapes how you respond when they do. If you start the day feeling grounded, you're more likely to find your center again when the world pushes. If you begin with compassion for yourself or others, you're more likely to extend grace instead of anger. If you begin with purpose, even a quiet one, you move with intention instead of drifting. What you feed your mind in the morning becomes your emotional nourishment for the day. If you feed it silence, peace may grow. If you feed it fear, fear multiplies. If you feed it love, love returns in small and large ways. This doesn't mean every day will feel easy, but it does mean that you are showing up with the emotional compass pointing toward peace, toward strength, toward steadiness. And when you get lost, as we all do, you have a map to come back to. So in those quiet first moments, listen carefully, speak gently, choose wisely. Because those morning thoughts, soft as they may seem, are steering the ship. And the course they set often determines where your heart will dock at day's end. Power begins in the quiet moment before the world hears your voice. That moment, often unseen and uncelebrated, is where your true strength is born. It is the breath before the words, the thought before the movement, the choice before the action. It's in that stillness, when the world has not yet placed its demands on you, that your spirit aligns with its own truth. No audience, no applause, no expectation, only you and your internal knowing, quietly forming the shape of what you will become. In a culture that worships noise, performance, and visibility, it's easy to overlook the sacredness of preparation. But the deepest form of power is not loud, it's grounded. It does not rush to prove itself. It does not scramble for approval. It gathers itself in silence, gathers its purpose in solitude, and lets the roots grow deep before anyone sees the bloom. The world may celebrate the moment you speak up, but your real power was born in the decision to believe you had something worth saying in the first place. There's a kind of strength that forms in silence, in reflection, in the unseen choices. It's the decision to get up after falling. It's the courage to tell yourself, I am not done yet, even when no one is watching. It's the calm, steady voice within that says, you are ready, before you ever step onto a stage, into a meeting, or through the door of a new beginning. That voice, soft as it may be, is your foundation. And if you never take time to hear it, you may forget what your own truth sounds like. Power isn't about how many people hear you. It's about how deeply you've heard yourself. Before the world forms an opinion, before it claps or criticizes, you get to decide who you are. That decision does not need permission. It does not need perfection. It needs presence. The presence to be honest about what you carry, what you believe, what you dream. The presence to sit in your truth, not rush past it. In that still space, you discover that you are not waiting to become someone, you already are. This kind of power cannot be taken. It cannot be borrowed. It cannot be imitated, because it is built slowly and honestly. It is built in early mornings when you doubt and still choose to try. It is built in late nights when fear creeps in and you still speak kindly to yourself. It is built in those quiet, unshiny moments when you remind yourself why you started and who you're becoming. That's the part no one sees. That's the part they will never understand unless they've walked it too. And when you do speak, when the world finally hears your voice, they may think the power is in your words. But the power was never in the volume. It was never in the reaction. The power was in the preparation, in the healing, in the remembering of your worth. What the world hears is just the echo. The real sound, the one that changed you, happened long before. That's why silence is not weakness. It is not absence. It is presence, sharpened and intentional. It is the soul preparing its language. It is the heart gathering its strength. You don't need to perform in the silence. You only need to be present with yourself, to sit in the questions, to face the fears, to embrace the tenderness that the world sometimes tells you to hide. In that tenderness is a strength that cannot be shaken, because it is not pretending to be anything other than what it is. Before every brave act, before every strong voice, before every bold step, there is a quiet moment. And that moment matters. That moment holds the truth of who you are. It is there that resilience begins. It is there that clarity returns. It is there that courage is chosen again and again. And when you finally move, when you finally speak, it is not just noise. It is intention. It is integrity. It is power that was earned in silence, carried with grace, and offered without apology. So do not rush through the quiet. Do not fear the stillness. That space is not empty. It is sacred. It is where you meet yourself. It is where your voice begins to form. And when it is time to speak, when the world is finally listening, they will hear the strength of someone who didn't just show up to be seen, but someone who showed up whole because they met themselves in the silence first. Self-talk should sound like truth dipped in grace. It should not sting like shame nor echo like doubt. It should be the kind of language that holds you accountable without tearing you down. It should correct without crushing, guide without guilting, and speak to your better self while still embracing the one who struggles. The way you talk to yourself becomes the environment you live in emotionally. You cannot thrive in a house of criticism and expect to feel safe. We are all speaking to ourselves constantly, in the small moments between tasks, in the quiet pauses, in the middle of mistakes. We are narrating our lives through our thoughts, and too often that narration is laced with judgment. You should have known better. You're so behind. Why are you always like this? These words become familiar, almost automatic. But just because something is familiar doesn't make it healthy. Many of us have grown so used to the voice of inner harshness that we mistake it for truth. But truth, real truth, doesn't have to be cruel, to be honest. It can be clothed in compassion and still be clear. Grace doesn't mean avoidance. It means you can tell yourself, that choice didn't reflect your best self, without calling yourself a failure. You can say, you're tired, not lazy, and still challenge yourself to rise. You can admit your mistakes without turning them into identity. The difference between destructive self-talk and transformative self-talk is the presence of grace. Grace reminds you that growth is still possible, that you are not your worst moment, that you are worthy even in your mess. Some people believe they need to be hard on themselves to stay motivated, as if self-compassion will make them soft or complacent. But research and experience both show the opposite. People who practice kind, constructive self-talk are more resilient. They recover from setbacks faster. They are more likely to try again because they are not afraid of their own judgment. When your inner voice becomes your ally rather than your enemy, failure is no longer a dead end. It becomes part of the process. Truth dipped in grace says, you made a mistake, but that mistake is not who you are. It says you didn't do your best today, but you can choose better tomorrow. It doesn't let you off the hook, but it doesn't tighten the noose either. It offers you a way forward without dragging you through unnecessary pain. And that's important because pain is not the only teacher. Gentle truth can teach just as well, often more deeply. Think of how you'd speak to a dear friend going through something hard. You wouldn't lie to them or let them off the hook entirely, but you wouldn't attack them either. You'd find a way to speak directly while still holding their humanity. That's how you should speak to yourself, with clarity, but also with tenderness, with honesty, but also with hope. Your self-talk is not just a reflection of your beliefs, it is a builder of them. The more you speak harshly to yourself, the more you start to believe you deserve that tone. And slowly that belief bleeds into your confidence, your relationships, your decisions. It becomes a quiet filter over your entire life. But when you practice grace, even imperfectly, you begin to reshape that filter. You begin to see yourself as someone who is learning, not failing, as someone who is growing, not stuck. And this doesn't mean ignoring the hard parts. It means naming them with care. You can say, "This habit is hurting me," without saying, "I'm a mess." You can say, "I need to do better," without saying, "I'm never enough." The difference is subtle but powerful. One speaks to possibility, the other closes the door. Speak to yourself like someone worth loving, worth cheering on, worth challenging without shaming. Let your voice be one that creates safety inside you, so that even when the world feels cold or unkind, your inner world is a place of warmth and strength. Let your truth be strong, but let it be softened by grace, because the words you say to yourself don't just describe you, they shape you, and you deserve to be shaped by kindness, not cruelty. By truth, yes, but truth that reminds you always that you are still becoming. Your words shape your resilience and intention. What you say to yourself in moments of pressure, pain, and uncertainty either becomes the fuel that pushes you forward or the weight that holds you back. Words are not empty sounds. They are internal blueprints. They influence how you interpret challenge, how you define yourself in struggle, and how you rise when life tries to pin you down. If your inner language is filled with defeat, you will wear it. If your language carries strength, you will carry yourself differently. Resilience is not about never falling. It is about learning how to get back up, how to keep going with bruised knees and a hopeful heart. And every comeback starts with a voice inside that says, "You can do this, even if the world says otherwise." That voice doesn't have to shout. It doesn't even have to be certain, but it must be there, and you are the one who plants it. When difficulty comes, and it always does, it's not just the problem you face, but the story you tell yourself about the problem that determines your next step. Do you say, "This is the end," or do you say, "This is part of the process"? Do you say, "I'm a failure," or "I'm learning through this"? Those words matter. They become a kind of emotional armor or emotional poison, and you drink them in every single day. Words are creative forces. With them, you build the structure of your beliefs, your decisions, and your patterns. If you repeat that you're overwhelmed, that you're broken, that you're not built for this, you begin to act as if those things are law. But when you speak words like, "I am adapting, I am stronger than I feel, this moment will not define me," you begin to engage with your struggle as a teacher, not a threat. That shift is everything. Resilience is strengthened not just by experience, but by the meaning you assign to your experience. And meaning is shaped by words. Think of someone going through loss or rejection. One person might say, "This broke me," and another might say, "This taught me what I value." The pain is real in both cases, but the story changes the outcome. That story begins with language. It begins with what you repeat when no one is watching. And the same is true with intention. You don't just float into purpose, you speak it into focus. You tell yourself what matters. You remind yourself why you're trying. You declare your direction even when the road looks foggy. Saying, "I will stay consistent," "I will honor my growth," or "I will give my best today" is not about pretending things are easy. It's about aligning your mindset with your mission. That alignment doesn't just motivate you, it carries you when motivation runs dry. Clarity starts with language. When you choose your words intentionally, you begin to live with more presence and precision. You don't drift through your day. You move through it with meaning. You respond to chaos with perspective. You meet setbacks with strategy. All because you've set an internal rhythm that reminds you of who you are and what you're moving toward. It's not about perfection. You won't always get your self-talk right. You'll have moments when you fall back into fear, into old patterns, into the trap of your inner critic. But resilience is not a one-time declaration. It is a daily choice. And that choice begins with the words you choose each morning, each crisis, each quiet moment of doubt. You have the power to reshape your narrative by reshaping your language. If you tell yourself, I am someone who always gets up, then each setback becomes an opportunity to prove that right. If you tell yourself, I will find a way to grow here, you begin looking for solutions rather than surrendering to despair. Your words push your vision forward. They remind you of your capacity. They turn a passing emotion into a lasting mindset. So speak with intention, speak with belief, not just when things go well, but especially when they don't. Let your language be a mirror that reflects not just who you are, but who you are becoming. Let it be a tool, not a weapon. Let it build the kind of resilience that can bend without breaking, and the kind of intention that moves even in silence. Because what you say again and again becomes what you live. Speak life to your soul before anyone else does. Before the world has the chance to define your worth, to assign you value, to judge your path or praise your steps, speak. Speak with the authority of someone who knows the battle inside. Speak with the tenderness of someone who has walked through quiet pain. Speak with the power of someone who refuses to wait for validation to begin living fully, because your soul is listening always, and the first voice it hears should be your own. Every day you are confronted with noise. People will project their fears onto you. Expectations will weigh heavy. Critics, whether silent or loud, will try to mold you into something you were never meant to be. But the voice that matters most, the voice that leads you, is the one you use when no one else is around. It's the voice that says, I see you, you matter, you are enough even in becoming. Too many wait for others to see their light before they recognize it themselves. They wait for applause to feel valuable, for love to feel whole, for success to feel capable. But you cannot build a life around the hope that someone else will say what your soul needs to hear. That is too fragile a foundation. You must speak life into yourself, daily, faithfully, like water to a seed. And not just when you feel strong, but especially when you feel forgotten, lost, or tired. Life comes in seasons. There will be days when everything flows, when your energy is high, your goals are clear, and the world feels aligned with your spirit. On those days, it's easy to be kind to yourself, easy to believe in your purpose. But then there are the other days, the harder ones, the ones filled with silence, uncertainty, disappointment, or waiting. That's when speaking life becomes a discipline, not just an emotion. You speak it not because you feel it, but because you need it. You need your own words to lift you before the weight of the day settles in. You need your own voice to interrupt the lies that say you're not doing enough, not good enough, not progressing fast enough. You need to be the first one who reminds your spirit, you are still worthy, you are still growing, you are still needed, and you say it with conviction, even if your heart is trembling. This doesn't mean ignoring your flaws or sugarcoating your life. Speaking life isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about telling the truth with love. It's about saying, this is hard, but I am harder to break. It's about acknowledging the hurt and then choosing to heal. It's about looking yourself in the mirror and offering compassion instead of criticism. Not because you're flawless, but because you're trying, and that effort is sacred. Words hold power. They create space, they heal wounds, they draw boundaries, they inspire movement. And the words you use on yourself become the internal script you live by. If you constantly feed yourself fear, shame, or limitation, you build a life that reflects those beliefs. But if you begin to speak in hope, in courage, in truth, you build a life rooted in something far more sustainable than performance or perfection. You build a life rooted in identity. And once you learn to speak life to your own soul, you stop depending on temporary praise. You stop bending yourself to please people who don't see your full story. You stop shrinking for the comfort of others. You grow into someone grounded, someone whose confidence comes not from being seen, but from seeing themselves clearly. You become your own encourager, your own reminder, your own safe place. Then, when the world does speak, when people celebrate you or challenge you, you're not shaken. Because the loudest voice in your life is already steady. It's already practiced. It's already rooted in love. And even when that voice wavers, you know how to return to it. You know how to rebuild. You know how to rise. So speak life. Speak it early. Speak it often. Speak it until your soul begins to believe it again. Because no matter what comes, no matter who stays or leaves, no matter what wins or losses cross your path, your soul will always belong to you. And it deserves to be spoken to with truth, with strength, and with tenderness. Before anyone else gets a chance to speak, let it be you who says the words that bring you back to life. In the quiet spaces of morning, before the world places its demands upon you, your words begin to build the life you will live. Each thought you choose, each affirmation you speak, becomes a thread in the fabric of your resilience, your purpose, and your peace. Speaking life over yourself is not just a habit, it is a declaration of worth, a discipline of grace, and an act of inner leadership. It is how you become grounded in a world that often pulls you in too many directions. When you learn to shape your thoughts with truth and intention, when you choose language that uplifts rather than diminishes, you begin to live from a place of power, clarity, and self-respect. Let your first voice be your strongest. Let your morning thoughts be gentle yet bold. And let your self-talk not only reflect who you are, but who you are becoming, whole, worthy, and unwavering.